Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing okay. My name's Helen and I'm a sound designer and I'm based here in Norfolk. Now, Unlocking Our Sound Heritage have asked me to talk to you about a little project we thought you might like to do involving sound over the summer with your family, get everybody involved. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a short stop frame animation using a tablet or a smartphone. And then here comes the sound part. We are going to make live sound effects using everyday objects from around our home to bring our animations to life. Now, I've had a lot of fun making my animation, and I hope you do too. If you want to share your animation with the Records Office, there's some links here: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So please feel free to share. Now, you might not know what Unlocking Our Sound Heritage do, but what they're doing is they're preserving all of the audio archive for the whole of East Anglia. So when people have recorded things in the past or collected things, they might be on like cassette tape or CD or reel to reel or records. So they're bringing all of those different formats together and they're digitizing them so that you and I can go online and listen to all of this stuff and find out about the rich sound history that we have here in East Anglia, basically. So your second question might be, what is a sound designer? So when you go to the theatre or a live event, something like that, you might hear sound effects being used, like thunder or dog barks or like sound effects or all sorts of sound effects, really. And so that's what I do for a living. Basically, I make and find sound effects to be used in live performance, and I work with the performers and everybody to fit them in with the rest of the production. So the technique that we're going to use to make our live sound effects is called Foley, and it's a movie making technique for performing sound effects live while watching back the film that you're making the sound effects for. So I'll just explain a little bit about how Foley came about. So at the beginning of the 20th century, all the movies were silent. The only sound would be a piano, a live piano accompaniment or a live orchestral accompaniment. By the end of the 1920s, they'd started to introduce sound into the movies um, because they had the technology to be able to do so. And there was a man working in the movies at that time, Jack Foley. He was born in 1891 and he came to California to work in the movies. And when he first arrived, he worked as a stunt double, he worked as a double, he worked as a location scout, he worked as a script writer, script supervisor, things like that. But when the advent of sound came around, they sort of realised that they had the picture and they had the people talking, the dialogue, and they had the music, but there was something missing. Now, if you listen around you now, what can you hear? I can hear a distant police siren, muted because it's outside the window, and I can hear the birds. And that's actually about it at the moment. But there are lots of other sounds around us that aren't just talking and music. There's like the sound of your clothes. It's like footsteps on the floor, doors opening and closing, leaves rattling in the breeze and things like that. So there's all sorts of sounds that we need to tell a whole story. And what Jack Foley did is he was working on a film called Showboat, which originally was supposed to be a silent movie. But because of the advent of all this technology, they suddenly decided, okay, let's make this, a talking picture. And so what Jack was assigned to do was to add in all the footsteps of all the people walking on all the different surfaces that are walked on in all the different shoes, high heels, flat shoes, all sorts of things. And so that was his job. And what he would do is he would watch back the film and they would record him making all the sound effects that they needed him to make, like the footsteps and the movement of clothes and things. And then when it got a bit too much for Jack to do on his own, he invited some friends to help him out. And so therefore you get Foley artists. That's why they're called Foley artists, after Jack Foley, basically. There's several layers to Foley. So usually there's footsteps, then there's clothes moving, like taking jackets off, putting jackets on, things like that. And then there's spot effects. So there's like doors opening, keys jangling. And quite often, actually, in wildlife documentaries, they'll add Foley. Like, for instance, if they're doing lots of close up shots and they don't necessarily have the sound of the animals. They'll use different things to make the sounds of the animals sort of scrabbling around and things like that. So watch out for that next time you're watching a wildlife documentary. But it's a real art to be a Foley artist, and in the theatre we use Foley because we like the idea of seeing sound effects being made live on stage. But I'm not a Foley artist myself. I think it takes a long time to train to be a Foley artist, and it's a lot of skill because they're actually performers, because they're performing the sound effects. They have to embody the character on the screen and then therefore perform the sound effects live. But hopefully our project's going to be a little bit simpler than that, because we're making weird and wonderful little animations. So we shouldn't necessarily need to get too heavily into footsteps and things like that. We can just really use our imaginations to create any kind of sounds that we really want to create. I'm using my iPhone to make this movie, but you can use any kind of smartphone or tablet. And the app that I'm using is called Stop Motion, and I think it is universal for Android and iPhone. But I think there will be other apps available if that one isn't appropriate for you guys. So what you do first of all is you take pictures of different objects that you want to tell a story with. Now for my animation, I'm using cutout paper, but you could use plasticine or Play-Doh or little toy figures, or you could just draw your animations. And you take pictures of them moving across the screen, and then what you do is you just play it back. So here we go. He's walking, he's walking, he's walking. He gets to his space rocket. Oh, a space rocket. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off! And the space rocket flies across the sky. And lands. And the little spaceman gets out and does a little jump in the air. And then the big plant grows and he goes, oh, what's that? And he runs away. Well, he sort of flies away. He gets back on the rocket and he flies away. And that's just really simple, me just taking lots of different photos. I think probably I've used about 193 photos to make this animation, and it's about 39 seconds long. The one thing I would say is that you must try and put your phone somewhere stable. Either if you've got a selfie stick or something like that you can clamp it onto, or something you can use to rest it on, because you want to keep the camera as still as possible so you don't get a jerky image. And I've got mine set to 5 frames a second, but you could go anywhere up to 25 frames or however complicated you want to make it. It's a really nifty little app actually, and very, very simple to use. And also there are features that you can unlock in it if you wanted to go a bit further, but I'm just using the animation part, and then I'm going to use the microphone bit to record my live Foley. Now, when I recorded my audio, I found that I had a bit of a problem actually listening back to the audio in the app, but I think it's a glitch with my phone. But if you have the same problem, don't worry, because when you export the movie, it does have the audio attached to it. Okay, so I've just selected the microphone on here, and then all I need to do is press record, and after the little countdown, I need to then do my sound effects live. Now, I'm just doing this with me here, so I'm a bit limited on how well I'm going to be able to sync it up. But you might have all sorts of different family members there who can help you to make yours. So you could say, right, you take the feet and you do the silly voices and you do the vegetables and you make these sort of other sounds with other things, because you can really just have fun and listen to lots of different objects around your house and see what different sounds you could make, and let your imagination guide you as to what you think they could be. Now, I must just say, just a little disclaimer that, obviously, before you go raiding your mum and dad's vegetable drawers and their cookery cupboards and things like that, just check with them that it's all right and make sure that it's all okay. So here I am with all my different instruments and stuff that I'm thinking of might use. So I'll just show them to you. So I've got this cabbage. which makes quite a good sound for the growing of the plant. And I've got this as well if I decide to go. And I've also got I've got a few instruments that I have lying around my house. My daughter gave me this plastic potato. She thought it made a good sound. I've got this ruler, cup. I think it's probably just got some stones in it. And I've got an oven rack, and I've got some shoes. Now, in a Foley studio, you would have lots of different trays with all different surfaces like gravel and cement and water and mud and all that, so that you could make all the different sounds of the feet. So have a think about what kind of surface you want your characters to walk on. I'm just going to use this sort of hard surface for my character. And also you could use things like shampoo or fairy liquid or something if you wanted to make some like type sounds as well. Okay, so I've pressed the microphone button here and I've got the record up here. So I'm just going to press record. I'm just going to go for it. A space rocket. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! Ooh, what have we here? Whee! Oh, what is this? A giant plant! Oh no! Let's get out of here! So there you have it. I hope you have a lot of fun with this project. I've had a lot of fun trying to make it too. Please feel free to share your videos with us, and thanks again for watching.